Good evening, happy Friday, and welcome to this week's episode of the Hearts of Men podcast hosted by the Empowering Perspective community. We are your hosts of this evening's conversation. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach. With me, I am also joined by Mr. Roland Walker, not to be confused with Mr. Roland Martin, right? He is known as a poor man's Dr. Phil and the man of many hats. And up under him, we have our good friend, Mr. Garfield Martin from the Uncle Junior Network himself, and he is the consistency coach. And below me, I have with me my brother Tawami Gaddy. I call him the son of Timothy, but he also goes by the Available Man. And with us soon, we have our other brother, Christopher McClellan from across the table with Chris. But until he arrives, gentlemen, how are you on this Friday evening?
Man, I'm doing great. I am doing well.
Doing great and the same. I was just looking forward to Friday.
It is Friday. I have a long weekend. I'm on here with my brothers. It gets no better.
Amen. It is always good to come up on Fridays to get the fellowship with my brothers and also fellowship with our peoples in the chats. So, with that being said, we would like to welcome you to this evening's conversation. So, as always, welcome Cassandra, welcome Crystal, welcome Bernadette, welcome Michelle Ray, Miss Verlene McCoy, aka Queen V, also Miss Lisa Keys, and everybody else who has joined us that have not gotten in the chat and announced yourself. We want to make sure that we welcome you to this evening's conversation because, trust me, we don't take your time lightly. We know that you can be any other place in the world, but you chose to be with us on this weekend before the 4th of July of 2023. So we want to make sure that we acknowledge you and appreciate you for being here. So, gentlemen, as I see my brother's joined us and he's still getting ready. So as our brother's getting ready, we're going to kind of like dive into this particular conversation tonight. Again, as always, if you're with us, get in the chats because we want to hear your perspective. We want your points of view, and we also want your experiences to kind of make this conversation come full circle. That's why this is the Empowering Perspective community. And I think this is a great segue after our 3-week conversation about emotions and feelings, especially the emotions and feelings from last week. And this week, we're going to jump on the hot topic of what I tend to call how to dismantle conflict. Now, I know everybody's familiar with conflict. If you live longer than a week, you've been in some type of conflict in one way or the other, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether you're driving down the street, man. Everybody's been a part of conflict. And trust me when I tell you, it's unavoidable. But here's the problem. The contemporary society is grappling with an escalating magnitude of conflicts exacerbated by multiple intertwined factors. Increasing polarization is creating deeper divides among communities, resulting in more entrenched and complex conflicts. This is compounded by a prevalent lack of effective communication skills, leading to an inability to resolve conflicts amicably and constructively. The advent of digital communication, especially social media, further intensifies this issue as online disagreements often lack the empathy and nuance of face to face conversations, fostering misunderstanding and divisions. Additionally, the high stress environment of modern life exacerbates people's reactions, often triggering impulsive and defensive responses that amplify conflict. Amidst growing cultural diversity, potential clashes between varying norms and values can spur conflict if not navigated with understanding and open mindedness. Lastly, significant economic and social inequalities continue to fuel conflicts, as those who feel marginalized or unfairly treated may resort to conflict as a means to seek change and justice. Therefore, there is an urgent need to equip individuals and communities with practical strategies and tools for effective conflict resolution, promoting a culture of dialogue, empathy, and respect for others. That said, our increase in our increasingly polarized and interconnected society, the ability to navigate and resolve conflicts effectively is not merely desirable, but essential. By fostering open dialogue, cultivating effective communication skills, recognizing the impact of online interaction, managing stress responses, appreciating cultural diversity, and addressing underlying inequalities, we can transform conflicts from sources of division into opportunities for understanding, growth, and constructive change. So, as we go ahead and jumpstart this conversation, gentlemen, I would like for you to give us your definition of conflict. Now, but I want to go a little deeper than that. So, that said, what is conflict and how does differing viewpoints escalate the level of, of conflict?
I'll start off with a conflict is just a certain level of um, of a disagreement. I think you can have a disagreement, but when it gets to a certain level, I think that's when it becomes a conflict. And I think one of the things that um, causes viewpoints to escalate to the level of conflict can be misunderstanding. There have been so many times, especially nowadays. Coach just kind of talked about it when he talked about the social media. When nowadays with technology, you can send a message to someone, but it can be viewed as a certain way, or can be viewed a certain way. And now there's a misunderstanding, and now someone may feel a certain way because of a text message that could have been misunderstood. So I would say, to answer this question, first of all, conflict, I think, is just a state or level of disagreement. And then I think one of the things that cause differing viewpoints to escalate to the level of conflict is a misunderstanding between the two parties or the groups or whoever's communicating with each other.
I'll agree, and that too. I think conflict, just in and of itself, the terminology conflict uh, can be between two opinions or between two struggling decisions, right? So I think it's just the friction of opinion or decision making, and differences of opinions. I, I I think it elevates conflict naturally because it creates what and I because I don't think all conflict is elevated. That's just me. I do agree with how Ong broke it down, but for me, I think any conversation of disagreements is a form. It could be a low level conflict, or it can be a high level conflict that you will then say becomes an argument or a fight or what or however you want to explain that. But the differences of opinion can elevate, I think, when we view things through our own narrow aspect without the ability to look outside of ourselves. And so then it becomes personal instead of just opinion based.
Man, I think conflict, it doesn't even have to be between two parties. It could be within yourself. You can have a conflict with what you perceive, and now you come across new information, and now you come up against variations of viewpoints. So it's like, okay, do I go with this or that? And now you're at a standstill or a stalemate where you have to determine which way to go. So the conflict portion of it, it doesn't, when you have a viewpoint and you have resistance against, say, a viewpoint, it's a conflict.
So let me ask this because I'm hearing some things. And so, Roland, you brought up the conflict within yourself. I kind of want y'all to kind of dig a little deeper because, Gaddy, you said, it doesn't. I think, Gaddy, what you were saying was something, someplace in between, like um, disagreement and conflict, and you're saying it never have to escalate. So, I want you to kind of go back and kind of peel that apart because I think some people may be confused by what you're saying. Like if it's a conflict, you say it doesn't have to get to the level of conflict. And then once he's done, Roland, I kind of want you to explain the internal conflict as well, if you don't mind.
Um, I I think because for me, I look at a disagreement as a level of a conflict. If you would say so, for me, that's how in my definition, that's how I view it. Like so, when I'm talking about escalation, I think the escalation comes in when we start putting ourselves into the argument. So when if I'm or into the conflict. Like if it's a conflict between me and you, and I'm arguing about, from a perspective of being raised by a single father, and you arguing from a perspective of being raised by a single mother, and those are our truths, it now becomes a personal conflict that creates that intensity, that rise of intensity, because it's about, now when you disagree, you're disagreeing about me or about who I think that I am, and vice versa. So I think that's probably where the confusion. So you right. So I do look at a simple disagreement as a low level conflict to me, in my opinion.
Okay, I think I got what you're going. So it's more so of a attack on the person or against the person, not necessarily against the talking point.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. All right, Roland, go ahead.
And I think conflict would just be, it doesn't have to be, you have variations of levels, I guess, per se, where you can have arguments and disagreements all stemming from a conflict. Because a conflict merely is, there's information that I believe to be correct, and now there's something that contradicts my information. So there's a conflict. It's not the same. We aren't going the same direction. Now, when it's yourself, I can have a conflict within myself whether or not I want to get up and work out in the morning, or whether or not I want to push as hard. So, and or some people have conflicts within themselves because they say they want certain things, but their work ethic or their drive doesn't say the same thing. So there's a conflict from what you say you want versus what you're showing.
I like that. I really do. Let me yield to the distinguished gentleman from Ohio. Welcome to the show, sir.
Greetings, greetings. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, Chris?
What is conflict and how does differing viewpoints escalate to the level of conflict? Ego. Ego and the need to be right. That is what can escalate to the level of conflict. Some people will move the goalpost so far just to be right and disprove what you're saying, simply because what you are saying disproves what they are saying or comes from a different perspective. That can lead to a conflict. Needing to be right all of the time. It turns into having a simple conversation with opposing views to a competition to see who can win, instead of two people sitting down and trying to learn from each other. That is what I see.
Hmm.
Ego. Everything that you all described, whether it is internal conflict or external conflict, all all involves ego. That is all that it is. I have an internal conflict every morning at 5 a.m. Do I really want to go to the gym this morning? Do I really want to put myself through all of this torture? Do I really want to do this? And then I get up. You got that? You damn right. I get up. I go to the gym. I put in the work, and then I see the results, and I'm like, yeah, this was worth it. I have conversations with people, and sometimes I just yield. I think John said this a while ago on a couple of shows. I lose a lot of arguments. You got it. You got it. I am not about to do this with you, especially when your only sole objective in this conversation is to be right and to shut me down. I do not even want to talk to you after that. You got it. It's all good. You go that way. I will go this way. I know I cannot converse with you because, one, you are not open to opposing views, and two, I cannot learn from you. That is what I think.
I love it. Now, I want to make sure that we're crystal clear because these opposing views that my brother's talking about, and Chris, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, but because I know him, These opposing views that he is talking about, they are objective views. They're not subjective in nature. They're not premonitions. They're not little hairs on the back of your neck. They are observations of things that may have happened or things that you know to be true.
Or they could be subjective. They could take an objective general statement and subjectively put themselves into it to make that objective statement correct, instead of staying objective and saying, this is what I see. What do you see?
Yeah, I'm with you there. But that's on a conversation on a higher level. Now we're looking at synthesizing information, and in most cases, when you find conflict, we can't even get to that level of conversation because we can't get past the information. Right? It's just we're just lobbing rounds of information back and forth at each other, like you said, to either prove you wrong or prove me right. And so I want to make sure that we're baseline and understanding before we progress forward. Because if we can't get past the conflict of information sharing, which is, from my perspective, really what it is, if we can't get past the conflict of information sharing, then there is no synthesis of information. And if there is no synthesis of information, there is no higher thought that derives from this entire conversation. We just stay stuck in a combative state because, like you said, ego, because, like Roland said, and I want to kind of add a little more texture to what Roland said about conflict as well. There's also internal conflict that I may be experiencing because of the information that you're sharing with me. I actually hear what you're saying and I'm believing what you're saying, but my belief system won't allow me to see myself in that information that you're sharing. Therefore, if I can't see myself in that information that you're sharing, it's wrong. I don't want nothing to do with it, and I got to fight against that. So I think we're off to a great track. And again, if you guys feel I'm saying something different than what you're saying or saying something even wrong, by all means chime in and let me know. Okay. All right. Very well. Because I don't have the need to be right. I just want to make sure I say that. And I go through conflict at 5 o'clock every morning when I turn on my coffee pot. No, I'm joking. All right, listen.
It's real conflict though.
That's real conflict right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
mean, I just, I really like the internal conflict, because that's huge right there. Because that's where a lot of the external things come out. There's something going on inside, and that's why people sometimes can't have the verbal conversation or the discussion between two people, because there is something that's on the inside that's already going on, whether they actually know about it, whether they're ignorant to it, or for whatever reason. There's something there internally that's causing the external ineffective communication.
I believe that what you just described comes from someone opposing your programming. When your programming is being opposed, what you have been brought up on and what you've been taught and what you've seen all of your life is being challenged as, okay, I see you see it this way, but there's also this way. Your
But I,
internal is like, really? Nah, let me push back. Let me fight this because what you saying ain't right, because this is what I know. Not okay. This is what I know, but maybe I can take what I learned and use that for what I know.
and sometimes I don't even think it has to be personally my programming or your programming. I think sometimes there's a conflict when we refuse to hear any other viewpoint outside of our own. Like, especially if we have to coexist, that's a silent conflict. And I think a lot of times we don't engage that direction, and we don't talk about that. There's a lot of conflict and silent battles we go through on our jobs and at our homes simply because one party just doesn't want to explore the other's idea or anyone's viewpoint or ideas. And so that's that tension you feel every time that person shows up, or every time that person walks in the room, because it's like either hear it my way or I'm gonna dominate the conversation so no one else's opinion can be heard because I don't want to hear nobody else's opinion because I know I'm right.
I
That's
think
when I
an
throw my
example.
hands up. That's when I throw my hands up and I say, "You got it. I
Okay.
am not about to argue with you. Nope."
Okay. So I'll play advocate. What if they are right?
That is why I said, "What can I learn from you?" If they are right, and I can see how they are right without putting my ego in it, I'm like,
Mhm.
all right, you really do got it. You really do have it. All right, I'll take that, I'll implement it, and then I'll move forward. Maybe I can better myself by learning from what you just said. But if you are just constantly yelling over me, talking over me, moving the goalposts, cutting me off, and things like that, just because you want to be right, you got it. I'm not about to waste my breath on you.
There's another side to that as
And
well.
so, go ahead,
There's another side to it as well, because this shutdown thing, which is called stonewalling, is another. It is the exact same thing, just in the opposite direction. So yelling at the top of your lungs just to try to dominate a conversation is a sign of immaturity. Stonewalling, getting quiet, being silent simply because you can't get your point of because you can't win because you're realizing that what this other person said is actually right and you ran out of ammunition, so you no longer want to participate in the conversation. That is just as immature as yelling at the top of your lungs. Go ahead, brother Gaddy.
I mean, so I have a different comment than what I was gonna make because of what you said.
My bad.
So no, because I don't disagree depending on the turn of events, right? Because there are some people who think loud means they're right because they're the loudest one because they don't allow you an opportunity to give an input to be explored. Then there's really no conversation because really all I'm doing is being yelled at or talked to, and I'm not entertaining that conversation because there's only one way that conversation can turn, you know, and that's just it's just bad. It's just gonna get worse after that. So and that happens in anything. I talk to people about sports who they so adamant about them being right about a specific player, so they just as soon as I talk, they but you're going to say no, hold on, get okay, no, I'm not going to keep doing that. So after a while, I'm just going to because there's nothing to be said. You've made it clear. I don't know. That's how I view it. When people do that, I view it as you've made it clear you don't want nobody else to have an opinion. I'm not gonna fight to have my opinion heard.
But I think
Right?
where we go wrong is we think that conflict in itself is good or bad. Conflict in itself just means that there's a difference in
Oppose
opinion.
opposition. Yeah.
Right. So now that's where you, being a mature person, can handle it a certain way versus someone that just want to lash out and I'm right and beat the table and all that other stuff. No, that's not the way mature people handle it. That's not conflict resolution.
Right.
Conflict resolution mean that I will think about what I'm saying as well as think about what you're saying and say, okay, I can see what you're saying, but I disagree here, and you can actually have a conversation. If you can't have a conversation, there can be no resolution
And
between.
that's why I brought initially the word objectivity to the conversation, because the only thing that we should be sharing back and forth in the midst of this conversation are facts. If you're busy telling me about how you feel about the facts, let's just be honest. You go to the court of law and tell the court, court system how you feel, they're gonna be like, yeah, okay, thanks. What are the facts? Stick to the facts. Let's talk about the facts. Once we can exchange the facts back and forth, then we can talk about the other stuff. But if we can't get the facts on the table and I'm relaying facts and you're relaying feelings, we're missing each other. We're not having the same conversation. Therefore, we can't come to a resolution.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
No. I'm sorry. I was just going because I started thinking back on that when Coach said, "What if they are right?" That's a dangerous place to be in because now, and that I resent your rightness because we couldn't have a honest dialogue about the situation. And even if you are right now that causes me to I don't even want to accept your rightness, not me, but you know how this. And then on top of that, that's dangerous for you because now you might think that you always right. and nobody will never have a part in the decision making process.
That's ego. That is
Oh,
all
absolutely,
ego.
absolutely.
Which one? Which one? Because I want to make sure that we're clear across the board. Which is ego?
Both.
Because
Both sides.
he kind of gave
Both
two
sides.
different perspectives.
Both.
Yeah.
Being
But
resentful of a person who
mhm,
actually brought a point to you that you can actually go and prove, and you still get mad at it,
right.
and still move the goalpost, and
Yep.
still want to be right, and
Yep.
still push the conversation to the point where there's a small percentage of a chance that you right, but you were right, so you won. That's ego. On the
Yep.
other side, I just disproved this man. So everything that I say that comes out of my mouth has to be right because I proved this man or I proved this woman wrong. That's ego
Mhm.
too.
Absolutely.
I always look at things from an objective point of view. I pull myself out of it because everyone has a bias. Everyone has a thought process. Everyone has a way of thinking. I can't, if I am trying to learn something from you, or if we are having a conversation based off of something that we can actually take into life, I can't bring myself into this. I can't do that because if I'm trying to learn, then my ego has to go away because I'm trying to learn. And I'm Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules to Life, rule number 4, number 5, always listen to somebody as if they have something that they can teach you. That is
But
how I am.
but if I was conditioned to believe that because of who I am always right, then that might be a struggle for me.
That's a struggle for you. That sounds like a personal problem. That sounds like you need to dive into yourself and get your ego in check.
I love it.
I think all these conversations and how far you go with them and whether or not you shut down or dismiss it or continue on and try to work past the conflict comes down to who you have the relationship with and how valuable that relationship is. Like if I'm having Monday morning quarterback conversation with somebody about what the Ravens or the Cowboys did at the Super Bowl. Oh, there we go. That's a Super Bowl prediction right there. Now they're in the same. There we go. Ravens Cowboys Super Bowl this year, right there.
Squirrel, shiny penny.
Yeah. So hey, there you go. Squirrel shiny penny. So yeah. So I. So oh man, look at how I messed it all up, man.
Putting the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Yeah,
I
you did.
Yeah, I
absolutely
think
love
that's
it here.
probably where I messed it up. That's probably where it went wrong right there. Even though this is our year.
I wasn't gonna say
Um,
that. It's every
yeah.
year, y'all year.
Yeah, but oh
Um,
yeah, the relationship piece. It comes down to who you have a relationship with. If I'm having Monday morning conversation with Chris about something and our football team didn't line up, blah blah blah. I'm just like, look, man, I ain't got time to deal with this. I'm gonna move on. If I'm having a conversation with Roland and that relationship is valuable to me, then I may be willing to deal with some of the conflict to push past it in order to get to a solution because I value the relationship more than my ego or more than being right in whatever it is that we're talking about or whatever we're disagreeing or having a conflict about.
but wouldn't the idea of relationship mandate that? Because
The who?
the term relationship. Because I'm gonna be honest
Hmm.
with you, like
And
I'm not trying to be funny. There are some people that I work with that I actually have a relationship with.
Yep,
There's some people I
absolutely,
work with that I do not. So
absolutely.
when it comes down to certain things, I do not address a lot unless it's brought to me because I
Hmm.
really don't have the desire to go into it. But at the end of the day, there are some that I will stick my neck out for and say, "Hey, I need to talk to you because I'm witnessing something and I don't think it's right," or so forth and so on. So I think the notion, the word, the concept, the parameters of relationship mandate that I take a risk for the sake of like what's the word I'm looking for? For the sake of come on man, you guys know it. Intimacy. Intimacy, that was the word.
That shows a level of discernment on your part.
Right.
You know what to give your energy to, and you know what not to give your energy to. If you have a relationship with somebody and you are willing to stick your neck out for them, then of course you're gonna pull them to the side and say, "Hey, I know this may cause conflict between us, but we gotta talk
Right.
because this what I see you doing. This isn't conducive to your growth, and I know you better than this." And then you'll see people that you wouldn't waste a second look on. You see them doing what they doing, and you like, all right, man, just let them mess up. Let them mess up so we can replace them and bring in somebody that can actually do what they supposed to do. That's discernment to me.
Yeah.
And this is also why people believe this false narrative that two alphas can exist in the same space, right? And is the term that they use as alpha, right? Uh, I know, Coach.
Another buzzword.
I knew you was gonna make that face, Coach. But being true to what what we probably would have said an alpha was 20 years ago versus what they say it is now, it's because a lot of people look at when they take that term alpha, they attach it to the term masculinity or testosterone, and so they think that it's this dismissive behavior and over aggressive behavior that that is not real. Like if you really and I'm a bleep myself, right? So if you really a boss B or you really an alpha male or whatever the case may be, that means you understand the value of the players in the room. And so
now let me stop.
I almost muted, bro. but to anybody that claimed to be a boss, that doesn't mean that you dominate at all times. That means you understand how to use the pieces that are around you properly. You know whose opinion, like there's certain conversations that I might have with Coach that I might not call Roland on, and there's conversations that I'll have with Roland that I might not call Chris on, because I know that the answer I need and the problem I'm having, that they might be more of a specialist in that area. And so a lot of times we get people that think that this alpha personality is what causes conflict. No, it's that there's a difference, because and I had to bring that up because that's what people look at when they hear ego. A lot of people equate that with that boss mentality. So people say, well, I don't have an ego. I'm just a boss this, or I'm not an ego. I'm just an alpha. No, you have an ego problem. If you was really a leader, you will lead the room, not dominate it.
Very good. I love it. I think we're off to a great start. Listen, let's kind of jump on some of these comments in the chat because I see they're over there blowing it up. As we get ready to pull up some of these chat messages, I want to make sure I speak to some people that came in after we got started. John, welcome, brother. Always good to see you. May Bird, what's going on? Good to see you. Nick D, welcome to the show. Always good to see you as well. I want to say I've got everybody. Yes, Cassandra McKenzie. I think I don't know if I spoke to you yet, but again, welcome to the show. Just in case I miss you, Michelle, welcome to the show. I think I got you, but I'm not sure. Let's kind of start with Facebook user. I don't have Facebook up, so I don't see who that is. But it says immaturity can cause conflicts. When you're more mature, differing viewpoints will be more understood than cause conflicts. Absolutely. And I agree with that 100%. That might be Miss Onita over there or Miss Sherry or Dr. Sweet. I'm sorry. I like Lisa's question there. What source do we adhere to when we have opposing opinions? See, that was the main reason why I brought up what if I'm right, because if we agree to a particular source and that source defines right and wrong in our life, and I am adhere and I am reflecting back on that particular source in the midst of our conversation, then that's the judge. That's the decision maker. Only thing I'm doing is pointing back to that and then comparing behavior to that. So I like this question because I think that's absolutely right. Michelle says conflict is the inability to consider others' perspective, which derives from negative thoughts. See, there you go. See, this what people in the program do, man. They get after the root cause out the gate. I'm gonna put you in timeout for like 2 minutes. And I'm joking, but she's right. Absolutely. The reason why people struggle from the perspective of, kind of like in the title, the art of thoughtful disagreements, which we'll get into probably next week, because I really want us to dig deep into conflict resolution this week, is because they cannot release the concept for them being right. it is a negative thought pattern that they're engrossed in, and they cannot consider something that someone else. And oh my God, don't let the other someone else be talking about them or their behavior they viewed as a personal attack, like Chris said. Conflict is two opposing points or opinions. What escalated is the struggle to consider any other point that is not corresponding with what they want. Absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly. Michelle says the escalation comes when a person doesn't want to stay in. I like that because I think I probably mentioned it earlier with the stonewalling piece, right? You have to learn to stay in the conflict for it to be resolved. Like just exchanging ideas is only the beginning of it. It's just getting once we get to the point of exchanging facts, sure, that's the beginning, but then there are layers to resolving the conflict that goes from there. So just because you're out of ammo when it comes down to the exchange of ideas, that doesn't mean you quit. Like you got to stay in it, and then now we can get to the point of synthesizing the information and then looking at self-reflecting, doing this information and so forth and so on. So I really like that. Let me see. Miss Verlene said someone is listening. I think that was with Chris said what John mentioned. Um, Miss McCoy says conflict to me is when the other person does not respect the other person's opinion or perspective. I like that. Um, and I agree. Like I believe everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to project a false perspective on me. So respecting a person's opinion and accepting it is two totally different things. To where I agree with what she is saying, I want to make sure that we kind of dissect it so that we're clear and like we're crystal clear on this. I respect the fact that you know Chris feels he looks good in black. I'm just going to use that, right? I respect the fact that Chris feels he looks good in black. That is a subjective perspective, right? As long as he feels he look good in black, I agree with how he feels because who am I to say that what he's feeling is wrong? However, if he asks me my opinion, I'm like, nah, bruh, you need to wear some light colors. You need to bring some greens into there and some yellows and all that other stuff. But again, that's my opinion.
And you know what I would do
What's that?
as an objective thinker? I would say, all right, let's go to Men's Warehouse real quick. Let's pick
That's
out
what's
some
up.
other stuff.
Right. There you go. And I like that, right? But I'm only using that as an example for this, and I wanted it to be blatantly obvious, right? Because again, respecting another person's opinion and accepting it is two totally different things, and I want to make sure I'm saying that because somebody can take this statement and run totally left with it and say I have a right to stay in my position when it comes down to certain conflicts as well. Look, we got to get rolling, man, because we already 40 minutes into this conversation. No, but rolling, I know you're here, bro. We ain't got to get you. You're right there. So let's kind of go. Let's kind of press forward. Listen, again, thank you guys for getting started. Conflict is a situational process where two or more parties perceive that their interests, beliefs, needs, or values are in opposition or are incompatible. It can occur between individuals, groups, or nations, and it can take many forms, including physical violence, verbal agreements, legal disputes, negotiation, and silent protests or standoffs. Conflict can emerge in various contexts, such as personal relationships, workplace situations, political scenarios, and international affairs. The cause can range from miscommunication, misunderstanding, differences in perspectives or values, competition or competition for resources or power imbalances. When conflict is often perceived negatively due to its potential to cause harm or discomfort, it also holds the potential for growth, innovation, and progress if managed and resolved effectively. This is because conflict can lead to a deeper understanding, problem solving, and the reconciliation of differing viewpoints or interests. As such, understanding the nature of conflict and the methods of conflict resolution can be valuable in many areas of life. The aim for this conversation is to increase your awareness to view conflict as first potential value if managed correctly, and secondly, the need to have a belief system that can hold the space for increased relational value. Those of you in the Empowering Perspective membership program, we will define the process for reshaping belief, making it possible to recognize and nurture the opportunity that conflict presents at any given point in time. That said, the Empowering Perspective membership program is your gateway to progression and self improvement. Through personalized resources, a supportive community of like minded people, and thought provoking content, we empower you to transform your perspective, unleash your potential, and embark on a journey of continuous growth through this e learning platform. This is not just a membership, it's a commitment to evolving your worldview, enhancing your skills, and enriching your life. Discover the power within. Join the Empowering Perspective membership program today. If you're on YouTube, look up under the screen, click the join button, and just follow the instructions from there. If you're on a mobile device, go into the show notes. In the show notes, you're going to see some empowering videos. Just click on one of those and it takes you straight to the program. That said, there are 4 points we're going to unpack in this discussion. 4 conflict talking points. The first one is we know as inequality, right? Now, inequality pretty much says significant economic and social inequalities can lead to conflict. People who feel that they are being treated unfairly or that their needs are not being met may engage in conflict as a form to protest or a way to seek change. So, the scenario here: meet the Green family, consisting of parents Laura and Jack and their 2 children, 18-year-old Max and 16-year-old Lily. Both children are hardworking students and involved in extracurricular activities. But now you get, but the parents have significantly different expectations and rules for them based on their genders, leading to a feeling of inequality within the family. Max, being the elder and a boy, is allowed more freedom and fewer restrictions. He is allowed to stay out late, has fewer household chores, and is given a larger allowance. Laura and Jack rationalized this by saying that as a boy, Max needs to have more independence and responsibility. On the other hand, Lily has an early curfew, is expected to help with more household chores, and receives a smaller allowance. The parents justify this by saying that as a girl, she needs to be home early for safety reasons and learn household tasks. Lily feels this is unfair and has recently started expressing her displeasure at this apparent inequality. This has led to several conflicts in the family as the parents maintain their stance, with Lily insists on equal treatment. First question here is: how do the gender based rules and expectations in the Green family contribute to a feeling of inequality?
Well, it is inequality at the end of the day. But as those parents, they have a right to raise their children however they feel they want to. And if they want to raise their children, if they believe that males and females are not necessarily equal, then I can see them passing their um, ways and beliefs on down to their children. The fact that they want her to stay at home, come in early, I understand the safety point, but by them wanting her to do, extra household chores, it kind of seems like they're kind of ushering or trying to setting her up on a path to be a wife at some point and trying to teach her some of those skills that she may need to be a wife. So it kind of seems like to me they're trying to do the traditional role type things. But I think, like I said, it's like that because it is inequality. And if the parents choose to raise their children that way, that's their right and that's their prerogative, good, bad, or indifferent, regardless of how I may feel or how I may think about it. In this scenario, I think this is what they're choosing to do. So it is going to cause those feelings of inequality when it comes to the children, especially the daughter, because she seems like she's the one who's getting the run end of the situation.
Uh, Go ahead, Chris.
No, is this all of the context that we get as far as the situation? Well, then I defer to y'all.
Okay.
This is scenario, so you can hypothetically.
Well, if we're speaking in hypotheticals, I would have to agree with. I would have to agree with Unc. They're raising their household in a traditional manner. The man is giving more freedom. I wouldn't necessarily give him more of an allowance. I would make him go get a job, because with more freedom comes more responsibility, and he needs to learn that as a man in our society. But aside from that, I mean, it is what it is. Men and women will never be equal. We are not equal. We are not the same. We are different things are expected from us. Bottom line. So if this is the traditional way that they want to raise their children, hey, go for it. I can understand the sentiment because with like I said, with more freedom comes more responsibility. And if Lily wants to be a wife, these are some of the things that she is going to have to do if she expects a man to be a working, busy man to take care of her. She's going to have to do these things. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, it is what it is. I'm not saying that the man won't help, but if the man is doing the provision thing, she's going to have to do the home thing. That's the traditional way to go about it. I mean, it is what it is.
That's the key word, traditional.
And I would say this is the opposite of tradition. It's become tradition. And what's happened is because men and women, they have done this in the past where the daughter had to learn how to be a homemaker and the son was out there being a frivolous bum because that's what he is. He's a bum. He doesn't have a job. He's given everything. He's not given responsibility. So he goes out there and he think, oh, I'm just supposed to get. I'm supposed to come home and it's supposed to be ready. And so I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to clean. I don't know how to do anything for myself. So I have to depend on somebody. So now I lean on this woman that God supposedly gave me. And then I become a domineering person in my household when I get it. But when it comes to I think that they are both being held back to different just in different directions because she's being she got to come home earlier curfew and all this other stuff, but he's being neglected in the sense where he has nothing going but whatever they're giving him. Everything is given because I don't think you should give a man anything. He should have to. I'm like, you worked for it. I'm not giving you a dime. I'm not giving you. You got to work. If you're gonna say you the man, that means you put in that you got to protect your family. You got to you got to provide. So if you can't provide, you just want to go out there. My grandmother told me, and I'm gonna keep the clean version. My grandma said, "Ain't nothing open past midnight but legs and McDonald's." So if
I thought it was
he's
7-Eleven.
no, we ain't had no 7-Elevens in Detroit.
Okay.
Um,
That's what
but
I hear. That's what I heard down here. Nothing
right,
open after midnight but legs and 7-Eleven.
yeah, we ain't had it. But I think that we can say that, well, that's how they choose to raise their family, but what they're doing to the family dynamic is destructive in nature because they don't have those children unless they're homeschooled, but for a short period of time. And they see other things outside of the home more than they do inside. They go to school with children and they watch TV and they seeing things and they're growing in ways that their parents may not be. So they could be damaging uh, both parties the same way, just at different variations.
I would say either way, they should both take their lumps. If you giving this boy everything and he go out in the world expecting the world to give him everything, he gonna catch hell. If you keep this girl inside and try to keep her traditional, knowing that she's capable of other things, and she's going to go out and try to do it anyway behind your back because she doesn't even trust you to open up and say, hey, I want to try this. Let me try this. Let me see how it works. Either way it goes, either way it goes to me, I think they're both gonna catch lumps because they're both like Roller said, they're both being held back and they're both being suppressed. One by being given everything, and the other one by not being given enough and taking on too much inside the house. You understand what I'm saying? So I mean, either, but like I said, man, if that's how they want to live, if that's how they want to raise them, that's how they raise them. The boy is gonna catch hell even more because he's been given everything, and he's going to catch a really, really harsh reality when he exits that house and understands that the world is gonna beat him up, and he's gonna have to go take whatever he wants.
He gonna
Because
try to
ain't
go
nobody
live
gonna
off a
give it
woman.
to him.
I am going to reserve my opinion of right, wrong, and differ, right? Because I think we all have opinions about how other people do things. And this is a reality for some people, right? But I would definitely speak to the question of the how can inequality be felt in this aspect. I would personally say in the idea or belief that we're the same. right? And when I say that, all right, you know, when it comes to giving the allowance without having to put no work in, that's a problem, right? I 100% agree. But I think a lot of times we feel as if there's inequality when we feel like we're the same, right? So and so what I mean when we talk about him staying, being able to stay out a little bit later, right? Uh, as a man, I can't protect my daughter who's out in the middle of the night by herself, right? And I mean I can't protect my son either, but it's that assumption that we can both protect ourselves the same way, or I can do what he can do, or I can do what she could do, of right, wrong, and indifferent, right? Um, so I think sometimes we feel as if we're on the same playing field in every scenario in life. So we feel like I should have what you have, right? I shouldn't have the job that coach has because I can't teach what he could teach. I can't do what he could do. So me saying I didn't get the job like coach got the job is saying that I believe that we are the same in value to that position. Um, I'm just in a firm belief that I shouldn't put my wife or my kids in a position to where I can't protect them. Is that a little overprotective? It might be, but more so with my daughters, right? Until she get a man that can stand in that gap, I want to be able to reach her and to step in when she needs me to. Um, and that's survival. So if my son can protect himself, my daughter can't. I'm not going to allow her to be in the situation. Now, granted, I don't think either one of them should be taught to be out late. I know but that in and of itself is a cultural or belief difference, right? I don't think either of them should be out late. But when we speak on inequality, to me, I think it just boils down to that. I feel as if we are the same or we are equal.
Right. I'm with you right there. When I think we're equal, we just have different responsibilities. Because equal, I don't think I'm above any woman or anything like that, but my responsibility in a relationship is different. My responsibility in a house is different. We both have responsibilities that make the relationship or whatever it is go. It's not like mine is better than yours because I provide this or you provide that. No, we work together and that makes it go. It's no big eyes and little U's. That's just my understanding.
So
Well, let me go ahead and say this. We are not equal at all. Men and women are not equal. We are not. Our responsibilities are different, which by definition makes us not equal. Men bear more responsibility. Bottom line, no matter how you spin it. Okay, you want less responsibility and you want us to give you everything. All right, go out in the world and see how that play out. Then you're gonna come running back crying to me because I didn't give you what you really needed, which was more responsibility, so that way you know how to handle the real world. You want to go out there and be like him and not have enough responsibility and be given everything and have more freedom. Go ahead, go out there. I'm gonna show you just how much you don't want to do that, and then when you come back, I'm gonna just say I didn't tell you to do that no way. I already had this laid out for you. The responsibilities are different. Men and women are not equal. Bottom line, no matter how you spin it, no matter what, no matter what, simply because we are different. We are not meant to do
Okay.
the same thing at all. We are
That's
not.
No,
that's that's
no.
what I was going to ask. Do you mean equal as in the same, or do you mean equal as in
I
because
mean
that's
equal as in I mean equal as in our responsibilities to society are different.
No, that's the same.
okay.
See, just because
No,
you
they
say
are
it's strong,
not.
don't mean you're right. You can say it's strong and loud and all that, but don't make you right. Because I think, and I understand what you're saying, I do. But my thinking is, you lessen her value to you because you think yours is better. You think yours is tougher. You think you looking at it from your perspective instead of saying, "Man,
No, I am not.
yeah,
But
you
go
are."
ahead.
Yeah,
No, I am
because
not. But
what
go
you do,
ahead.
you give ultimatums. You say, "Well, if you don't want this, well, go out there and do it yourself." And she did. That's why women do it. They do it themselves.
Yep.
Because
And then later on, they complain about it,
they have
saying, I had
men
to do
that
all of
can't
this
do it
stuff,
themselves.
and now I need somebody to come take care of me. You hear it all the time.
What do these men need?
You understand what I'm saying?
But that's on both sides. That's what I'm saying. We need each other. It's
Listen,
equal. It's
listen,
like you can't be
listen.
pulling and I'm
We
pulling
are
that
not
way.
equal, but our responsibilities to each other are different. This is conflict right here. Our
Yes.
responsibilities to each other are different.
Yes.
I do not in any way, shape, or Unc, you probably understand why I say this. Pressure is made for shoulders, not hips.
But you can't push out what she can.
That's
So
between her and God. That ain't got nothing to do with
Oh,
me.
come on,
all
now.
right. So hold on. This where I'm gonna jump in. So I like listening to both of your perspectives. I'm being completely transparent because there's truth in both of what you're saying. I do agree that everybody is equal value, men and women alike, right? I think there's equal responsibility. Those responsibilities just look different when it comes down to how how we do certain things, how we contribute certain things. Can she do what I do? Sure. Will it be the exact same will I do? Of course not. Can I do what she do? Sure. Will it be the exact same way that she does it? Of course not. So I think that concept is that what we have to get to the point to where we appreciate our likenesses, but value our differences. And I think once we can get to that point of, get to that point of understanding, then it's not this person over this person. It's how we come together and merge together and do the thing collectively. In this particular scenario, the reason why I like this scenario and the reason why I allowed it to play out, because like I think Gaddy, you said it perfectly. This is somebody's reality. I remember seeing this growing up. I think somebody put in the chat. I think it was Cassandra. She asked me, "Say, are you articulating my lifestyle right now?" Because this is real. This is really how a lot of people raise their children. To where the boys went out and did as they did, and then the women, the girls, had to stay in the house and they did chores and all this other great stuff. Does that make it right? No. Does that make it wrong? No. That's just make it how they manage their house at the same time. I think Gaddy, I'm agreeing with Gaddy here. I'm not saying that this is right, wrong, and different. I'm saying, did we sit the children down to talk to them to help them to understand why we have these rules in place? If we did not do that, then that's the main thing that caused the concept and the feeling of inequality. And then the other side to it, because I want to skip the next question, because I've seen a better question in the chat from a cousin. The other side to it is that if we do not have that conversation, then what does that do to our daughter going forward? How does that kind of separate the relationship between her and her and the parents, especially her and the dad? Because I'm supposed to be her protector. Like, I'm the one she runs to. I'm her knight in shining armor. Mama's her trainer. So if I allow this to happen, then it's really going to cause a strain on the relationship. Just my perspective. But I want everybody to look at this question right here, because I think this is key. um, what if the parents have different viewpoints on how to raise the children? I want to pause there. I don't want to go to fixing just yet. I want to pause there. What's the issue here?
So I think for like my mind just completely went to a sticky situation, right? Because only because if me as the father feel as if I can raise my son and daughter this way, then I'm assuming then I'm also demanding that my house is ran that way. And so then if my wife disagrees with me, there's a high possibility that my wife is unhappy with the way my house is being ran. And she's just been silent about it. To
If
me, that's a problem.
if they got to this point with children and didn't have this conversation, that means they are raising dysfunctional kids when it comes to communication already.
Why did you
So,
have kids in the first place?
right.
That-
Here's what I would say. I had two. First, like, to what is the issue? One, like Roland said, they did not have this conversation ahead of time. Two, it could be new information. It could be a new situation. It could be something that we didn't necessarily talked about. I think last week I said something about, cell phones. 20 years ago, we didn't have conversations in our relationship about cell phones and what's okay and what's appropriate to post on social media. In 2023, we have to have a conversation. So it could be that this is something new that the couple have not been through yet, and that could be the issue. In addition, or like Roland said, it could be something that they didn't talk about beforehand.
Agreed. Now, how do we fix it?
Have
We
the
have a
con
conversation.
But what it but okay, what
and stick
if at the point of conversation there's conflict?
I
At
think
the
they
point
need
of
a
conversation,
mediator.
there's
embrace
conflict.
it.
One's
Embrace
red
it.
and one's blue. All right. So he say red and she say blue. So how do we fix it?
Right.
I think they need a respected mediator to actually have that conversation because
So a third party stepping in to tell them how to raise their
So
kids.
I don't
so
want no third
so
party. Ain't no third party coming in here telling me nothing.
hold
Especially
on,
not
hold on,
especially
hold
not
on,
your daddy.
hold on.
I'm just
'Cause
saying that's going to be the pushback from somebody in a
Right.
relationship.
Right.
absolutely, probably the
but
man.
but
Here's
Eh,
why. Here's
eh,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say it's because here's the question that has to be asked. What is the goal? What are we preparing them for? We gotta at some point we gotta stop going back and forth, right? And we have to decide what is the goal that we're trying to achieve with raising our children. If no one asks that question, we're just going to go in circles. So how do we fix it? We first have to come to a complete conclusion of what we want our children to look like, right? So I'm going to say that as a father, I want my son to be hardworking. I want him to have temperance, and I want him to be able to defend his family and his home at a minimum, right? That's just a baseline. And for my daughter, I just want to be able to take care and protect my daughter. If that's my goal, right? Then can I compromise on her doing all the chores? Sure, I could protect her without her cleaning the kitchen, right? Uh, can I? But how can I rear my son and teach him temperance and teach him how to be a hard worker if he's out there in the streets in the middle of the night? You know what I'm saying? So those questions have to come up. So if I say that and she points that out, I have to accept that. Well, you're not teaching your son that by keeping him out all night. So so sometimes when you lay out what the goal is, sometimes that's when you start seeing the flaws in what you're doing. But if you're just doing it because that's how your mama did it, that's how your daddy did it, or that's how you seen it done, that's the wrong answer.
Let me do this. I need to keep y'all a little concise with this one, right? Because time is not on our side right now. I want us to focus on the parents resolving, and I want to add a little flavor to it because this is my life. This was my life. I'm be honest with you, right? I want us to dissect it, and here's the issue for me that I discovered was the issue. It wasn't the fact that I didn't have the conversation. We just didn't define success in the conversation, right? So for us, we didn't have the conversation to such a degree that we both had a shared understanding of what success looked like in the end. Therefore, what I thought we were doing was working toward a progressive understanding. But on the other hand, the other party was working toward them being innocent and them being the good guy. So when it came down to the things that needed to be said, I was the spokesperson. When it came down to the things that were comforting, the other party was the spokesperson. So in turn, what ended up happening is that I looked more like the enforcer as opposed to it being a joint venture in the direction of it didn't look like a joint venture with both of us working together as a team. So I want to make sure that we're specific, right? I got the nuances, but how do we fix this?
Hmm. Well, I guess the only real way to fix this. Are we talking like, okay, we just had children, or are we talking we have these kids, they've developed, and now they can talk and speak for themselves?
I want them to be older children, talk and speak for themselves. I think that's where the problem exists.
You talk to
Like the
them.
scenario. Keep
You talk to them. Sit them down. Hey, son, what do you need from me? Hey, little lady, what do you need from me? I am not raising you to be like them. I do
Now,
not
mind
want
you,
you
Oh,
to be like them.
mi-
between the two parents.
right
Between the
now,
Right.
two parents.
That is what
mind you,
that is what I'm saying. Like
right.
me, their mother, my kids, same room. What do you need from us to develop into the person that you want to be? What do you need? Map it out. Let's figure this out because this is also my life too. I never had the conversation. In fact, I was told 18 in the day, go figure it out. So let's start them early. What do you need from me? What do you want to do? Let's map out a plan. Let's figure it out. Hey, lady, what do you want to do? Let's figure out. Let's map out a plan. Let's figure it out. If you want, if my son wants to go do something and be this big whatever, okay, map it out. Let's make it happen. If my daughter, if my daughter wants to go do some things, but she also wants to be a wife, okay, look after your, look at what your mom is doing for me, and look at what your mom is doing for me, and look at what I am doing for her, and find a man that will do that for you. It's relatively simple, but the kids' input is necessary. It is necessary. This is the part of the game where they actually do get a vote because we're talking about their lives. It ain't about us. It's about them.
I agree with Chris on that one. I think that the conversation has to be had, but I also think that we should define what a father brings because we don't see things differently. I'm a man, you're a woman, so we will see things differently, but we have to show them that differences aren't necessarily bad. We have to say, okay, as a man, this is what I want for my son, for my daughter, and we have to come to some type of agreement on what's because I'm showing them how to be a man. I'm showing her what a man should do, what a man should be. So it may not look the same now as the little nuances of it, may be a little different. The overall goal is to raise healthy children.
I got to ask this question to both of y'all though. So both of y'all are fixing the conflict between what you and your wife want with the kids.
Well, for me, I would have a conversation with the wife first and foremost, so we can establish what we're doing. Like, what is the goal of this whole thing, and so that we're on the same page when it comes to talking to the children.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
If we
just,
have a
I
if
need
we
that.
have a son, if we have a son, all right, how do you want to raise our son? If we have a daughter, how do you want to raise our daughter? When they get to the point where they can talk, okay, what do you need from me to go help you complete your goal? Period. Because after we have children, our life becomes about the children. At least it is supposed to be.
Right.
So
And now I'm gonna get in the boat with what y'all saying because I'll be honest with you. I was on the show at first, but once y'all say talk to the wife first, I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm with you because this is the thing that I learned, not just through personal experience, but over the course of time. I think both parents need to relinquish the idea that they believe they know what the other parent is supposed to do. Let's be completely transparent. Men, you have no earthly idea what the wife's responsibility as a mother looks like. You only know how your mom did it. Women, you have no earthly idea what the man's responsibility of a father looks like. You only know how yours did it. Stop comparing these other people to your parents. You don't even know if your parents got it right. That's the first place I'm going to start. You only know that they did it. That's it. Right, wrong, and indifferent. When you bring what you know from home into your own personal relationship, what you're saying is that my parents did it right and yours did it wrong. I need for you to get on board with my parents. So part of that conversation is that we get in a room and we just be completely honest and transparent. Look, I don't know what I don't know what motherhood looks like. I don't know what my mother looks like. And I can share with you what I've seen. That's about it. But so you share with me how you feel you're going to help me raise our son. And then I will share with you how I feel I'm going to help you raise our son or our daughter, or whatever the case may be. Then from there, we move forward together. But I think too many times what you hear, and I hear it all the time in social media, and it really gets under my skin because everybody think they know what the other person's responsibility is, and they're completely failing at theirs because they're too busy on the other side of the boundary. Get out somebody else's lane. Pay more attention to yours and get good at that one thing. Master that. That's where I would start at. Once we have that conversation, then we can go talk to our kids because now we're a joint. Now we're a joint unit. Go ahead, Unc. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you good. I was just saying, in a perfect world, some of this seems like in a traditional relationship, how you would fix it in most cases is, you know, granted there are some adjustments that can be made, but usually in a situation like this, the wife would probably just lean on to whatever the husband decides to do in a more traditional type relationship. But if we're speaking about this and this information having been communicated back and forth, then I'm assuming that, maybe in this situation, it may not be traditional, or maybe it may be a traditional, but maybe in this case, the wife feels very strongly about a certain thing. And I can understand that as well. But I think if it gets to a certain point to where they can't talk and they can't figure it out, is nothing wrong. I know Roland said it, maybe jokingly, I'm not for sure, but getting a third party involved. And sometimes you may have to do that. Sometimes it may be better to bring in a counselor or go to counseling and say, hey, look, we can't figure this thing out. We've been trying, but we didn't went round and round. We didn't argue. We didn't fuss and fight. We didn't try to use effective communication. But at the end of the day, I still think it's red and she still think it's blue. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that they're right, but what are the principles that guide your relationships? And maybe lean on those and go back to those. Or like Roland said, get a third party, get somebody in there that can help you unpack some things and see things from someone's perspective that has no dog in the fight. So that's what I would
Can,
think.
can I flip something real quick though with what you just said? Because if I speak to a lot of people that I think we would consider traditionalists, right? Uh, Friends and battle buddies I know that are African, that are a little more traditionalist than we are. Some Muslim friends and other stuff like that. Here's the strong reality: if the wife is at home while you out working and paying the bills, she's doing all the raising. So you really ain't got that much say. So a lot of them, they if we're being honest, a lot of them that I speak to, they allow a little more of that leniency towards mama's side because mama, if we're living in a traditional house, if she's at home doing it, that means she's also at home raising the kids, and so you really ain't got that much say,
Yeah, and
which is
those
really
things are determined in the beginning, in most cases, in other relationship of how they're going to raise the kids. And sometimes there is a traditional, and then sometimes the father may be responsible for making more decisions, maybe financial or X, Y, and Z, and then the wife may be more
yeah.
responsible for making more decisions when it comes to nurturing health, X, Y, A, B, and C. You know what I mean? So it all comes down to those conversations on that effective communication and making sure that people understand what their roles and responsibilities are during the course of the relationship. And if not, the relationships are evolving. Like I said, at some point there wasn't cell phones. So now you have to keep evolving and having conversations and getting to a greater level of understanding between the two parties in the relationship.
And that was me. When my older kids were growing up, I would, hey, I go out and earn the money. I come home, I'm the disciplinarian. I'm gonna tell you, Daddy, I get the call, I come disciplined, leave me alone. That was me, and I didn't do too much of the rearing of the kids until later on because it was like, okay, I don't know what they like. I'm not with them all day. So it was like I had to learn my kids over because it's like, okay, I don't know what they do. I don't know what they like. I'll show up to parent teachers conference. Well, why Billy can't read? Where if the lights ain't on, it's my fault. If they can't read because they just dumb, it's her fault. That's what I was taught. Seriously. I was taught if the lights ain't on, they can't read, it's my fault. But if they can't read because they don't have it, it's her fault because she was the nurturer, she was the teacher. And that's how it was traditional.
I can't believe you just called Billy dumb. Um, so listen, um, I think listen for you you guys in the chat. First of all, I want to thank you because I am looking at your messages and I want to apologize because I wasn't able to get to all of them but trust and believe I am seeing them as they're coming. And so I just want to, number one, just appreciate you openly and in public, because I love what you're saying over there. One more request for you guys. As this conversation has progressed, put a one in the chat if you greatly appreciate this conversation, the open and honesty, and the actual level of discussion that we've had as it pertains to this conversation. Just put a one in the chat so we can get a good understanding. And as we getting ready to steam, fast forward ahead, gentlemen, I want to kind of get your perspective, because obviously we can't go to the next. We can't go to the next, right? So I kind of want to get your perspective as it pertains to this. And before going forward, Kendrick James, I hope that we answered your question, brother. That's my cousin, by the way. I hope that we answered your question. I also want to get your perspective as well, because I love the fact, as you talked about the scenario, then we kind of talked about Kendrick's point of view. Let's just go on and kind of complete the circle. What about the parents that are in opposition when it comes down to raising children? And even though one may be trying to work with the other one, that other one only puts on a facade of trying to work with them. And Roland, you kind of understand, not this isn't your scenario, obviously, but you kind of understand, and Gaddy and Garfield, you understand it. But when we go away in the military for extended periods of time, then they go back to the whole whatever perspective that they were actually parenting through, which goes against the conversation that was had when we were there. Like, what is your response to that? Like, how do you deal with that? How do you combat that, if you can?
I had to realize that I was, dang, I'm trying not to say crass things. The military teach you some bad analogies. I was hitting against a wall, running to a wall, because I would go away and for a year and a half, and come back, think that, hey, everything, I'm daddy back. Now I do this, do that. When, oh, mama said we could do it like this. And then you find friction with her, friction with the kids. Now you the bad guy. You really don't care. I earned the money. I got the doggone wallet. So now you learn to mature and say, man, let me see how she's been doing. Let me see, because it's been working. Because when you kind of usurp her authority, you disrespect her authority in front of the kids, then they learn to disrespect her too. And they say, what mom say? I'm gonna go ask daddy. And because they used to come ask me thinking they slick. And I was like, what your mama say? That's what goes. So I learned to be the backer of her. I'm gonna back up. Hey, if she says something I disagree with it, I ain't gonna tell the kids. I'll say, why are you telling them like this? And I'll talk to her about it later. But I never, took her authority away, because when she had to lay the wood or whatever, I wanted her to have the same impact as if I was, because I didn't want her to do it to me.
I like that.
In the perfect world, I would have to, and I'm saying in the perfect world because my young me would have been ready for another conflict with mama, right? Then I thought we talked about this, and I said blah 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 blah, blah, right? If I was more mature, and probably even more mature than what I am now, because we still growing, I would have to take a step back, because obviously we didn't come to a true agreement. Because if you're pretending like you agree because I'm gonna deploy later, then it sounds like I'm probably shutting you out in the conversation, and you're agreeing so that there's no more conflict. Maybe I need to do better at hearing you, so that we can figure out how we can meet in a actual true compromise, but doesn't compromise the value of our children, of who we want them to be. And so I would have to say, hey, let's have this conversation again. This time, let me sit back and you start. What does this look like? And then put out what I feel like it looks like, and say, now how do we meet in the middle? Because we have to, it has to be something that she can carry on, honestly, when I'm not there. Because when you deploy, back when we first started deploying, we were deployed for 12 to 18 months. You want her to go a year and a half doing something she don't believe in doing? when it comes to the kids, it's probably not going to happen. So we have to, so maybe I need to do better at hearing you, and then figuring out how our two ways agree and meet there in the middle.
I'll start by saying this. I remember when we deployed and we got those briefs, they told us that it takes about 18 months for you to acclimate back to your family. Well, a lot of us wasn't back 18 months to even acclimate back with your family before you were shipped off again. So now here you are on a double or triple or quadruple rotation, and you still haven't acclimated back with your family. So first of all, I wanted to start with that. But like Son of Timothy said, take a step back, look, observe, see, what I mean, look, you got to think about it is going to be different. You've been gone for 15, you was gone for 12 months, you was gone for a certain amount of time. So her raising the children by herself, it is going to look different. That rock, that man, you was there, your way you disciplined, how y'all leaned on each other and had little certain code signals to, communicate with each other. That was gone for a whole year, gone 12 months or however long you was gone for. So it's going to take some time to come back and adjust. So the best thing for you to do is sit back and observe. And then if you, excuse me, if you notice some things that are adjusted or maybe a little off, continue to observe and look and have a conversation with your partner. Say, hey, look, notice some little things is off like this. Maybe she has a good reason why things are different. You know what I mean? And just because things have changed, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. You know what I mean? There may be some changes that may have been adjusted, may be beneficial. So like I said, I think the main thing is to sit back, observe for a little bit, and see how you can kind of implement or implement yourself back into the family rotation, after a certain amount of time, and making sure you have effective communication with your wife about the situations and different things that you may see. Because you're different. The relationship has been evolving for the last year while you was gone. It's going to be different.
Chris, can I play your subconscious thoughts for a second?
Um, I guess I guess I would agree with everybody. Like if I'm
No,
going for
man.
a
You were supposed to let me play you for a second.
I'll mute my mic.
So I'm watching Chris' face, and this is what I believe he is thinking. And I could be totally wrong. Why does the relationship look different if it's what we agreed upon before I left? And we're in constant communication while I'm gone. Shouldn't I be made aware of any changes that may have taken place before I came back? None of this should be a surprise to me. And if this is what I am intimately involved with, because that's my life partner, so she is not withholding any good thing from me, then I'm totally aware from a conceptual standpoint of the changes that were made. I just now am being brought to the understanding of it simply by being in the presence of it. And I am a slow integrator, but it shouldn't take long.
In a nutshell, I mean, if you are doing all of the things that we discussed, why is me coming back to this such a surprise?
I
Why are
will
you not
say
following the plan?
I'm
What
not.
is going on? However, I do understand this, and this is where I agree with Garfield and Twame and Roland. Things have evolved while I was gone. Even though there is a plan, sometimes that plan needs to change because things are different. That child is a year and a half older now. So I can't treat them like I did before I left. I have to I have to figure out a way to incorporate myself back into this, but the plan is still the plan. That's just how I see it. The plan is still the plan. We discussed this. This is how things are going to be. We agreed upon this. We sat down. You are my valued counsel because you are going to be the one around them. I'm going to be out here sacrificing my life to make sure that you have something to, you know what I'm saying, to have. So the nurturing side of it, and you're going to be quote unquote on your own for the next year and a half. I mean, I might be able to air phone you from time to time, or I might be able to FaceTime you from time to time, but you are going to be the one in constant contact with my children, with our children. So as long as you stick to the plan, but make sure that the plan allows for growth and evolution, what's the issue?
That's it right there. There's the plan. The base plan can't change. Like, we ain't cheating on each other. Certain things, just bottom line, we're not doing. That's the baseline. Other than that, like you said, there is some room for evolving and some adjustments as the plan. Your plan when in relationship is like an open document. It's a running document. It's constantly evolving and it's constantly changing because, like you said, we grow, we evolve, we change, we acquire more information, we have more experiences that's going to create a better version of ourselves. So,
but coach in his monologue as Chris across the table with Chris, right? However you say it, let me read it. Across the table with Christopher McClellan. See, reading is
Ain't that
fundamental.
something?
uh, it made me think about something because all the onus has always been on the deployed soldier to make acclimation easier. No one's ever mentioned, at least I've never heard. I don't know if FRG did, but we know the stories of what FRG was like while we were deployed, right? But no one ever mentioned how do we make it, how does the spouse at home make it easier from their end? What are things that they can do to implement things so that when daddy comes back or mommy comes back, it's not a shocker? Maybe those things that we were doing before they left, we need to continue doing. Right. So that really made me think both, because we always talk about both parties, but in this scenario, for the most part, we put all the onus on the deployed soldier, which is a heavy duty on us not to come back and jump in there and just start whipping children off the plane, right? Uh, but I know that was an extreme. I'm just saying, but that has to be teamwork. We have to, and on top of, can you make it a little easier for me to adjust by allowing me to know what changed? We talk on we was not FaceTime. What did we have back then? We were Skyping or whatever we were doing so that we can speak to each other and we could talk to each other. We was having these intimate I love you and I miss you conversations. Nowhere in that you told me you let Mike get a mohawk, even though I don't like you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to use something that's not triggering, man. Just but you couldn't have told me that so that when I come back, it wasn't a shock and I didn't lose my mind. It has to be both parties working at it, and I think that's probably why we don't have a high success rate of deployed soldiers reintegrating back, because whenever I feel like it's all on me, it becomes heavier for me to bear that burden, because it's all on me to make it work. It's all on me to act right. It's all on me to be quiet. It's all on me to step back. But what do we do on the other end? So there has to be a dual responsibility.
I love it. I love it. Over here on the Hearts of Men podcast, we always ask questions and make people think. That's what we do. And hopefully, we gave you a little something to think about as we continue to unpack this conversation of how to dismantle conflict. We're just getting started. We're just getting started. Make sure that you're back next week, same time, same channel. Bring some friends, because as you can see, we peel the covers all the way back. We get down to, like, we just stripping the bed and we starting over, because we want to make sure that everybody's equipped. And listen, bottom line up front, when it comes down to the Empowering Perspective membership program, we teach the techniques to where you can become a more effective conflict resoluter and have thoughtful disagreements. As always, this brings us to the bittersweet moment of our conversation, to where these gentlemen get to give you their last thoughts. So, with that being said, we're going to start off with the young gun of the crew, my brother from another mother. Take it away, because everybody loves Chris.
Oh, really? Hmm. Okay. Well, my final thought is very, very simple. Tonight, you witnessed conflict. You witnessed a bunch of different opinions. You witnessed a bunch of passion. You witnessed a bunch of dynamics. And at the end of the day, we still all sat back and learned something. Conflict is inevitable, but what can you learn from it? Sometimes you learn to concede. Sometimes you take what the other person is bringing you and better yourself. I mean, that will pretty much be my final thought. As long as, like, conflict is necessary, but as long as you learn something from the conflict, whether directly or indirectly, it's a good thing. Don't try to avoid it, because avoiding it just means that you're going to get into a deeper conflict later. That's just my final thoughts.
Whew, I'm gonna keep it simple. Save the monologue for the ending of this discussion because it's deep. So I would take away from today: get yourself and your personal feelings out of the way in conflict, so that you have the ability to hear what the other is saying, so that you have the ability to feel where the other person is coming from, so that at least there's a middle ground that we can meet on until we have to revisit this conversation. Because sometimes conflict, when it's a big conflict, it ain't done in one session. Sometimes you ain't got the energy to finish it in one session. But can we get to at least a middle ground that we can just hold our position right here until we come back to this conversation, right? It's not a, like coach would say, the most important part of the relationship is not you, it's not me, it's the relationship. So conflict is necessary, but you got to get you out the way.
I think that conflict is something that's always going to be around for most people, whether it be internal, like Roland mentioned earlier, or external, like everybody else, like we've all been talked about today. At the end of the day, we have to get good at learning how to resolve conflicts in our life. I think, it helps lower stress, all these different things like that. Because like I said, we're all at some point, most of us, we're going to have conflict in our life. And I think it's very important to understand how that if we don't handle it, it can cause other and bigger problems down the road. So that's my final thought.
Conflict is always a positive when you're willing to, as Chris said, to learn and listen to the other party, because you aren't always right. They're not always right. But what is right is what's trying to be learned and deciphered amongst the people communicating. I think that when it comes to conflict, the within the family is the first structure that a kid learns, and we need to make sure that we make a plan first and foremost before we even get to family. It's just two people. That's a family. Make a plan for what happens when you have that child or those children, so that you won't have so much conflict when it comes to the rearing of the children. And man, be the head. If you the head, accept the responsibility. So that means when it come down to the losses, it's just like the quarterback. He the only person that get those losses under his belt, under his name, on his record. So you got to accept that responsibility. And family, don't start what you can't maintain. If it's a doggone preschool, kindergarten graduation, you shouldn't be out there popping bottles and riding around in a limousine for that. Make sure that the expectations are set beforehand so that you can limit what they expect out of you. Because if you can't maintain it, you just trying to keep up with the Joneses, you'll end up with a lot of conflict within yourself for not being able to provide, as well as with your children for not doing the things that they have come to expect from you.
Man, I think this was a good conversation. I greatly appreciate all of the perspective from the gentlemen that were on the panel, and I think they added so much value that I don't necessarily have to overcook the grits that they already cooked. I would just leave with just one point. You will never behave consistently in a manner that is inconsistent with your programming. If you struggle with conflict now, then trust me, until you start to change the programming, you're going to always struggle with conflict. And if you pay attention to your environment, you may not necessarily be that person, but if you know somebody who struggles with conflict, pay attention to them because they struggle from person to person to person, regardless of what that looks like. So we have to get to the point to where we rewire that programming, change the programming so that you can respond and behave differently, and then you'll get a different outcome. So that being said, on behalf of the gentlemen on the panel, on behalf of the entire community, on behalf of the people in the chat, man, you guys are awesome. I want to make sure I stress that. I appreciate you. And I want to tell these gentlemen on the panel right now as well, I value each and every last one of them. Like their perspectives are phenomenal. I want everybody to understand we're still friends. Like just because we have a disagreement, we don't have disagreement to the point that we view each other as adversaries. Like we're gonna laugh after this is all over with. So I want to stress that, and that's why I enjoy these gentlemen because like their perspectives really make you think, and I love it. So listen, same time next week we're going to continue this conversation. And in the words of Ice Cube in the movie Friday, come back, so that we can continue the conversation. So
Hey, come
listen,
back.
come back, right? So listen, you guys have a great rest of your evening and a phenomenal weekend. And listen, if you celebrate the 4th of July, go out there and barbecue, spend some time with your family and friends. If you're in the Empowering Perspective membership program, we'll see you guys on Monday night at 7 p.m. and on Wednesday night as well. Because we got two shows that we're going to share. We're going to share with you. We're going to finish out positivity, and then we're going to begin the covenant piece of relationship because we finished how to be single already. So that being said, listen, you guys enjoy yourself. Get out there, get some sun, and have a great weekend. And we'll see you guys next week.